Hi folks, welcome to our tutorial on working with the new Hero Slider. So let's take a look. What is it, what can we do with it, and what are we going to learn with this tutorial? Well, the Hero Slider, it's a responsive CSS jQuery slider, and there's four options. What we can do is provide a slide, or you can create a slide that has a full screen background image and caption centered. You can have a slide with a left or right image and opposing captions. You can have a full screen video background with the caption centered, or you can have no background with just a caption in the middle of the page. So let's just take a quick look at it before we dive into the tutorial, then we can just blast through it and you can be on your way. So here is our Hero Slider. So the first slide right here in this example, this is a full screen slider. We have a title, we have a caption, we have a button here that you can link to a page or another website or whatever you want to do. It's a great little navigation tool. Then we have a slide, the next slide over. This is what we call a right-aligned image. So we have an image on the right, a caption on the left. Now when it comes to image sizes, the default size we're using is 1920 by 1080. That's basically a high-res pic, and that's for our full screen. Although you're not going to get the full size of the image, it fits really well. You can use something, I'd say at least, 1920 by 700 or 800, because the height of the window here is about 700 odd pixels. So you want to make sure that you have enough picture to cover that. That's for the full screen background image. For the left or the right image, this is a kind of unique case because the slider is literally split into half. And the image that you put over here will show over here, and it won't show over on this side. So really, image size, take a look at the default we've provided, and whatever size the image you put in here will sort of be scaled down to fit, which is really kind of cool. Now the type of image, we've got just like a monitor here with something, a bit of a placeholder image. You can put whatever pic you want in there. Then we go over to the background video. Now this is different than the video page because we use a YouTube background video. For this particular background video, it's actually local. It's something you host on your own server. Now that's where it can get a little bit tricky to set up. We don't do this very often with our sliders or with our pages, but in this particular instance, it works best if you want to use a background video for this particular slider. It needs to be hosted locally, and we'll get into that shortly. So let's jump into the actual tutorial part of this video. Let's show you how to, first of all, add a slide. So when I say add a slide, that would be a container with a background image, or a left and a right image, and the text, and then we'd have to add a button to a link to that particular slide. So here's how we do it. In Dreamweaver, we're going to go into the library, and we're going to go into the sliders, the Hero Slider folder, and open up the heroslider.lvi file right here. Now we're going to flip into the code view, and I'll just show you what we're looking at. This is slide 1. It's commented. Slide 1, slide 1, slide 2 is commented. Right? All the slides are commented to make it a little bit easier for you to figure out what slide is what. Now as far as, well, if you want to change the slides up and use, maybe you want to have full screen background images for everything, what I'm going to suggest you do is find one that already has a full screen background. Now if you look here under slide 1, this actually tells you parallaxing full screen background image content on top and center. If we scroll down a little bit to slide 2, this one will tell you content on left, image on right. And then we go down onto the next slide, slide number 3, image on left, content on right. So we've labeled all these for you. So if, for example, you wanted to create more of the full screen background slides, you just simply copy slide 1, make a little bit of space between wherever slide you want it to show up, and paste it in there. And that's all there is to it. For the first part, there is a part 2 to this, and that's actually changing the image. Right, so as far as adding slides, that's how you do it. Then you need to go down to the bottom, like so, and you're going to need to add a button. Okay, now these buttons are sort of, you just have to add a button and then change the appropriate name of the button right here. So we added one after slide 1, we're going to add one after button 1 right down here, because like everything else, it's labeled. So button 1, button 2, and I'm just going to, I would actually take the time and go through and rename, all my buttons once I had them in here, but that shows you how to get another button in there. Okay, so when you add a slide, you need to add a button. If you remove a slide, you need to remove a button. So instead of, in this example, we added a copy of slide 1. If I want to remove slide 2 because I don't want to use that particular slide and just go with 5, then I'd have to scroll down below and I have to remove, button 2, which used to be right here. I just have to remove the button right there. So I made it sure I had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. Okay. As far as the buttons go, you don't have to have any special naming sequence in them. You just have to make sure it gets popped in there, and then you put an appropriate button name. And my advice is keep your name short and sweet. Keep in mind, when you have this slider on your mobile phone, the buttons, because they work left to right, they're not going to stack on top of each other in a mobile device. Tried it, it doesn't look good, doesn't work well. So basically the buttons just drop off the end. If you have too many, they just won't be visible on certain size devices. So keep your descriptions short and sweet if you can do that. So I've showed you how to copy an existing slide and paste it somewhere else in your page to create another slide. That's how you add more slides. But what about the slides that actually have the full screen background image versus the slides that have, a right aligned or a left aligned image? When I say what about that, is when you look in design view, well, there's the image right there for the left, right? And let me just refresh it. I guess I deleted my page here. Just let me go back to what I was doing for a sec. Thanks, folks. I just wanted to take you back to a position where before I deleted the left and right images, as in my demonstration here. Some images, the left and the right ones, for example, those are the ones you'll see in the page. The reason being is because we've actually used a div tag and we've wrapped an image within a div tag. And we've said this is a half width container and it's a half size image. Now, that's the only type, and that's why I said when you are adding and removing slides, copy an existing slide, like so, paste it if you wanted the image on the left, and then you just have to change the picture. And to change a picture is like any other library item. You just double click to open up your select image source, then you can go to wherever you've placed your image and you can select a new image and click OK, and boom, it changes your pic right there. Now we've talked about it a million times in other videos, but in this case, this is a unique slider because we have so many different options. We have video background, we have full screen background, but you don't see the full screen background. Slide number 1 has a full screen background image, but you don't actually see it in the library page. I'm going to tell you why. Because this image here is the only image type that has a parallax scrolling effect. As you see here, when I move the slider, the image in the background moves sort of at parallax. But in this image here, we have a right aligned image. It doesn't. It's static, or it's in the same position as it is when you scroll the page. So if you can see this, when I scroll, it's parallaxing. In other words, it moves at a different rate than the scroll of the page. When I use a side image, it does not, because it doesn't work that well. That's why we did that. So when you have a slide with a full screen background image, you will see that we have this parallaxing full screen background image. Right below that is a class called HS Hero Slider Slide 1. So what we had to do in order to achieve the parallaxing effect is actually apply a background image to this CSS class. So I'll show you where you can find where that background image is loaded in from, and then you can make your changes. Right? So keep in mind, we want to change the HS Slide 1 image. So we go to the CSS folder, and there's our hero slider right there. Scroll right down to the very bottom and a little bit up, and you'll find all the HS Slide 1 right through 12 or 11. And right in here, you'll see where the image name is and where the folder is. So basically, put your images here in the images folder. We provided Hero Slider 1 through 6, okay? 2 of them being PNGs, right? But over here, right, if you want to change this, that's where you're going to change your background image. Keep in mind, you can just double click. There's many different ways of finding out your image size. In this case, it's 1920 by 1080, so it's a full high-res image. All right, you can use any size image. The CSS will attempt as best it can to stretch or fill the background of the page with that image. So you could actually use something as small as 800 by 600. It would still work, right? We're trying to go with the highest definition image we can, just so we get the best clarity. So 1920 by 1080, but you can go lower than that. But try and keep in that sort of 16 by 9 ratio for the the higher def ratio. So we've sort of covered how to change the full screen background image, how to change a left or right image because it's actually in the design view of the page itself. You double click on it to open up the image source and you can find your new picture. And right here it tells us the size of the image we're using is 1200 by 800, right? So like I said, that's doesn't show up as 1200 by 800 on our page because our page shrinks that image down a little bit to fit in the room that's available, the space that's available. As far as the title, there's the title right there. It's a little bit larger font. Right below it is the description, then the button. This is regular, good old-fashioned HTML here. We have a H2 heading, we have a paragraph tag, and then just a regular anchor link, okay? And it's wrapped in a HS button class right here. So basically it's just change your text, and then you can relink your button to whatever page you want. If I wanted to link it to my About page, I just select the text, the blue button text, get my point to file tool and drag and drop it onto the page I want to link to, and then I just change the H2 and the paragraph text, and that's all I have to do. As for the button down below here, same thing. If I want to change from slide 1, I just select it and type in button 1 or whatever I'm going to call it. Just keep in mind, try to keep the words short and sweet and try to use just a single word if you can. We've put like 6 slides in here as a default. Most of you will probably use fewer than that, which is good because it gives you a little bit more room for buttons. Rule of thumb, if I can suggest one, I'll go back here, is you see the width of the title and the description here? Try to keep your buttons no wider than that. This is pretty close to it. 5 would have been more ideal. Like I said, you can have as 12 or as many as you want, but just keep in mind on a mobile device, the ones that don't fit, they just won't show up. Just like, oh, they're off the view, we're just going to hide them. And that's because they don't stack on top of each other vertically in mobile that well. So it was decided not to go that route. Okay, so we've showed you how to add a slide, how to remove a slide, how to change a full screen background image, how to change a left or right image, how to change the title, description, and the Learn More button, how to add more nav buttons if you need to or take them away. Now the final thing is this video here. What if you want to change the video? Well, it's pretty simple. You can only use, we'll go to the hero slider and we'll go to the code view and we'll look for the video. There it is right there. Slide number 4, video in background, and it uses this div class right here. And basically what it's doing is it's saying look into the library, sliders, hero slider, video folder, and look for a video called video period. Let me show you how this works. This is why I said this is something you have to do. We don't use local video very often because here's the video folder. You see how we have video MP4, video WebM? Yeah, you're going to need both video formats. Okay, and make sure you use just one word for your video name. I mean, if you had multiple slides with different videos, it would look something like this. So let's say you have different videos. You'd have to change this word video to camping. Let's say we have a camping video. Well, over here you'd have to have 2 videos. I'll just rename this. Both called camping. One called Camping MP4 and one called Camping WebM. Now what you can do is you can take your MP4 file and you can upload it to a online converter and have it converted to WebM. So just do a Google search, MP4 to WebM. So this is the extension here, WebM. You'll upload your MP4 file, hit the convert, it'll create a new file for you, and you can download it, put it in your folder, and away you go here. Right? But you have to make sure that this here is the actual video, the name of the video, But you notice there's no extension. That's because the script will determine what video format your browser or the visitor's browser supports, and it will determine whether it's going to play the MP4 or the WebM file format for them. So you just need to say that the actual name of the file and exclude the extension. The script will actually figure that out for it. Okay. So that's the video part right there. I'm not going to get into a whole lot more on uploading and doing video because Google is a really good resource for that. So, definitely one of the cooler, more flexible sliders that we have. This is probably one of my favorites to this point because it's so useful in what it can do. I really like the idea you can have a full screen background image, and the fact is you don't really have to worry too much about the actual image size. And a lot of the sliders you have to be very specific about the image size. This one we've gone with a really big image, 1920 by 1080, but the slider itself will resize the images for you to fit. So if your image is too small, it'll show it at its original size. If it's too big, it'll shrink it down. As in this example, this image is actually 800 pixels tall. Right, but as you can see, if this visible area is only 700 pixels tall, the image is being sort of resized to fit and it displays quite nicely like that. And also, when you use these half-size, image on one side, content on the other, it automatically just does a 50-50. Half for the content, half for the image, it'll resize it, and the image won't flow over into the other side of the page there.